3 sex toys have been thrown on WNBA courts in the past week during games in Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles.
The green dildos being thrown on the court during the game is rape culture.
There's a horrific crime spree affecting women's sports in America, and it's definitely not at all even a little bit funny. We're going to break down the big news coming out of the WNBA and the online meltdown over it, and so much more on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas in our politics, media, and the internet, all from an independent perspective. Guys, welcome back to the show. We've got a real doozy up for our main topic today, and then some other more serious stuff to talk about as well. But first, the WNBA, I'm not a big fan of women's basketball. I can't even watch the NBA. It's also become kind of a joke to me at this point, even though I like basketball. But the WNBA, I mostly hear about it when there's some sort of political or social controversy. And there very much is right now, because there is a trend of people throwing dildos onto the court in the middle of WNBA games. And people are very upset about it. A lot of people are laughing about it. I don't support it. I think it's bad, but I can't help but chuckle a little at the same time. So first, here is some news coverage about this. I'm going to put in a clip of this happening at a game, and then some coverage from the Associated Press. Take a listen to this, and if you giggle or laugh even once, you are a terrible, evil person.
Oh, look out. Something just came onto the floor. Got an object that just flew in as the free throw was being made. And it looked like that hit a player too.
3 sex toys have been thrown on WNBA courts in the past week during games in Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles. LA Sparks coach Lynn Roberts said the disturbances are a danger to player safety after the most recent incident happened during a game between the LA Sparks and the Indiana Fever Tuesday night. Fever guard Sophie Cunningham was nearly hit by the object when it was thrown during that game. According to social media, green sex toys have also been thrown at games in Phoenix and New York, but didn't reach the court. In response to these incidents, the WNBA has said that any fans throwing objects onto the court during games will be immediately ejected. They will also face a minimum 1-year suspension from league events and prosecution from law enforcement. Local authorities have arrested the perpetrator of the original incident in Atlanta last week, according to the league, but it's unclear if further arrests have been made as the disturbances continue.
Now, the players and coaches, I think, understandably are not very happy about this. Here's a coach of one affected team and a player as well.
What was your reaction? What do you think about this happening across the league?
I'm going to steal that question. I think it's ridiculous. It's dumb. It's stupid. We take. It's also dangerous, and player safety is number one. Respecting the game, all those things. I think it's really stupid. That's all I'm gonna say.
And it's super disrespectful. I don't really get the point of it. It's really immature. Whoever's doing it just needs to grow up.
This is becoming a very big story to the point where the Post-Millennial reports that more money is now being bet on dildos at WNBA games than on the games themselves, which is quite the headline. Like, this is 2025. Every day I feel like we're in an upside down world, and crazier and weirder stuff that you never could have predicted. Even The Simpsons couldn't have predicted this one. Crazy stuff is constantly happening. And I guess what I should say about it is this. Do I find this kind of funny? Yes. At the same time, do I condone it or support it? Absolutely not. These women are professionals. They're trying to do their job. And throwing objects into the middle of any sports field can be dangerous. Somebody can trip and fall and get hurt. I think people are being a little hyperbolic about how dangerous it is, but it's not really safe. And it is rude and crude and boorish. And yeah, I don't support throwing adult objects at women who are trying to do their jobs. It's not actually okay. But at the same time, will I admit it's kind of funny? Yes, I will. At first, I was like very stiff upper lip about it on X, and I was like, this isn't okay, guys, don't laugh. And then the more it played out, I found myself laughing too. And you're not evil or diabolical for giggling at this, because it is kind of funny. Especially like watching them all like react to it, and they're like, oh boy, here we go again. But the people doing it are being arrested and charged with serious crimes. So I definitely don't recommend anybody hop in on this bandwagon. And ultimately, I do not condone it, even if I will chuckle at it. At the same time, I don't think that this is the end of the world. I don't think this is patriarchy or rape culture in action, but that is very much the take of TikTok feminists who are not coping well with this story. Let's listen to one woman who is a coach of some type give her take on the situation.
Here's a video I never thought I'd have to make. The fact that in 3 separate WNBA games in a matter of days, a green dildo has been thrown onto the court is not hilarious. It's not like, ha ha ha. It's harassment. And due to the nature of the object, I would say that it's sexual harassment. And we know that the first one was thrown by a man. And like, what's happening is like, I feel like we're all like laughing in order to like take the power away from the thing. Like, we're just gonna laugh along. But like, that is so common. It is so common in just general society that men make a joke that is at women's expense, which that's what this is. Throwing a dildo in the middle of a WNBA game is a joke at the women's expense, the player's expense, the league's expense. And we're supposed to, make it our own thing by making it funnier, but actually it's not funny. It's the fact that it's happened 3 times is not funny. It's harassment. And it should not be on the players to have to like make a joke about this thing when there are flying objects when they're trying to play a basketball game. That is a danger to their safety. That is not a joke. And it should be not on them to laugh at the joke that the men started at their expense. Stop it. I'm not laughing.
I'm sorry, guys. The more mad and the more like serious and uptight and angry that people like that get about it, the more I can't help but laugh. I mean, like, I roll my eyes a little bit at a couple things she's saying. To say it's sexual harassment is a bit much. I mean, sexual harassment is a serious thing that really affects and harms people. And to say that because somebody threw an adult toy on a court a couple of times and had to pause a WNBA game for a couple minutes, that's sexual harassment, seems to me to be stretching the meaning of that term and watering it down and diluting it in a kind of unfortunate way. That, again, is just really not fair to the actual victims of sexual harassment, which is a serious thing and not a laughing matter. But also, I think they are over-genderifying this. I know that's not a word. I don't even really know what I'm saying, but they're making this like a, look, men are being terrible to women again thing, which, I mean, obviously there is a gender element to it, but people have also done this to men. There was a whole thing in 2019, I believe, where the Patriots, people kept throwing adult objects onto the field in the middle of Patriot games. So it's not like only women are ever subject to this kind of trolling or prankery. And again, I don't condone it, but you are feeding the trolls by engaging in this kind of feminist hysterical meltdown over it. Like, this is what they want. You realize that, right? This is exactly what they want and what they find funny. So you're doing great. Keep it up, I guess. And now this one actually frustrated me because I found it to be totally absurd and ridiculous and frankly offensive. Let's take a listen to this.
I'm home from Italy and the UK, and I immediately need to talk about the WNBA again. The green dildos being thrown on the court during the game is rape culture. Throwing dildos on the court while women play basketball is rape culture. Women being good at something that has nothing to do with men. And even if a woman threw it, even though I'm hearing the streets are saying it's not, anyone throwing a penis onto a women's sports game is asserting and reaffirming that women cannot exist without a man trying to reassert that dominance via a sexual act, via a sexual object. There's nothing more like that's rape culture. And I don't believe I ever found it really funny. Like, explain the joke real quick. What is the joke? As someone who deals with penises quite a bit, I can't really find hee hee ha ha in this one. So please explain it if you think it's funny. So it was never really giving, Comedy Central. But it happening repeatedly now, I'm like, is this a threat? What do we do? Like, what's really happening here? But I want us to use clear language. So I'll say it again. Dildos being thrown at women while they play sports is rape culture. This is not funny.
Bro, not everything is that deep. Not everything is that profound. And there's a level of hyperbole and hysteria here that I think actually, again, kind of waters down the actual horrors of rape and its victims when you're saying that a prank involving adult objects being thrown into the middle of a WNBA game is part of that. I mean, was it rape culture when pranksters did the same thing to the Patriots a few years ago over and over again? No, it's an immature stunt that I don't condone, but I can giggle at because it is a little bit funny. And not everything requires a master's thesis in grievance studies, in identity obsession, in oppression 101. Like, not everything is that deep. Sometimes it's just a joke, it's just a prank. It is very clearly not a threat. Of course, it shouldn't be allowed. Of course, they are going to have to crack down on the people doing it. But, and I do see that there is an issue with doing this to women who are professionals, who are trying to do their job. But when you take the hysteria up to a 10 about it, you make it funnier. Like, you do realize that you make you're giving the people who do this exactly what they want, which is for woke people like this to be incredibly triggered, and they are. So at the end of the day, I do not think this story is that deep. I think it's kind of funny, but it really shouldn't continue and can't actually be condoned or tolerated. But the hysterical meltdowns over it are also, I think, actually much funnier than the prank itself, but at the same time, more disturbing as well. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet to this channel and to the Bread versus Everyone podcast. Remember, you can also listen to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. So feel free to take us with you on the go and join us over there. And guys, remember to send in your voicemails for my Voicemail Friday episodes where I listen to your woke horror stories, your personal life situations. I give you my advice and I answer any questions you guys have for me. The link to send in one of those is in the description. Okay, guys, we've got to talk about big news that just came down the pike about the Trump administration getting hit with a massive free speech lawsuit for some of its immigration actions it's taken, revoking people's visas over speech they've made or ideas they've expressed or articles they've written about Israel. So this lawsuit was just announced by the nonpartisan Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, FIRE, where, disclaimer, I do a little bit of freelance work for them. Here's their video announcing this lawsuit.
Can Marco Rubio deport legal non-citizens for speech he doesn't like? Federal statute says he can, but the First Amendment says otherwise. Over the last 5 months, Marco Rubio has targeted lawfully present non-citizens for deportation based on constitutionally protected speech criticizing Israel. He's relied on 2 statutes to do this. The first allows him to deport any non-citizen if they express an opinion that he thinks threatens American foreign policy. That's what they used against Mahmoud Khalil when they didn't like what he had to say. And the second allows him to revoke any non-citizen's visa at any time for any reason, including based on constitutionally protected speech. That's what happened to Ramesia Oster after she co-authored an op-ed critical of Israel. That violates the First Amendment. No court has answered the question, can the Secretary of State deport a legally present non-citizen because of their protected speech? And that's where FIRE comes in. Citizen or not, criticizing American foreign policy is not a crime. It is a constitutional right that we all share. But since January, the Trump administration's message for non-citizens couldn't be clear. Watch what you say or else. This is America. No one should fear a midnight knock on their door because they voiced the wrong opinion. That's why we're suing Marco Rubio in defense of our clients and all legal non-citizens who are afraid to speak their mind right now. Because liberty does not come from the government. The right to speak your mind is a right that belongs to everyone, that the government can never take away. That is what makes America exceptional. And no idea is more foreign to what makes this country great than punishing people because of their protected speech.
So we're going to get into more details here, but my initial reaction is just that I support this lawsuit. I would rather, and set your opinions aside about the underlying conflict between Israel and Palestine, the war with Hamas, all of that, because this is actually about the principle here, not the specific speech in question. I would rather live in a country where people are free to speak their minds, people who are here legally, we're talking about immigrants in this case, rather than one where the immigration enforcement might kick down their doors and arrest them if they say the wrong thing in a newspaper article, like what happened to Ramesia Ozturk and others. And in this case, it's being done to people. And no, it's not just people who support Hamas, a designated terror group. It's people who just criticize Israel, like Ramesia Ozturk and others. And I would rather live in a country where the government does not have the power to do that, because a future president that is progressive and hates Israel could just as easily use these federal statutes that Marco Rubio is invoking to deport anyone who supports Israel or supports the IDF or anything like that. It's a very dangerous game, and I think it's just fundamentally inconsistent with the ethos of free speech and the letter of the First Amendment, which doesn't actually say only for citizens. It limits what the government can do, and it says that the federal government can make no law abridging the freedom of speech or press. It doesn't say asterisk only for US citizens. And multiple Supreme Court cases have found that First Amendment rights do extend to legal immigrants. We're not talking about illegal immigrants here. That's a separate debate. But for legal immigrants, they do have some degree of protection. And even the late conservative Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia acknowledged that they enjoy some extent of First Amendment rights. So once you accept that premise, it seems pretty clear to me that these federal statutes, which are incredibly vague, dangerously vague and broad, that the Trump administration is invoking, are unconstitutional and should be struck down. Now, more details from Fire's lawsuit here. America's founding principle is that liberty comes not from the government, but is an inherent right of every individual. Every person, whether they are a U.S. citizen, are visiting for the week, or here on a student visa, has free speech rights in this country. Two lawful residents of the United States holding the same sign at the same protest shouldn't be treated differently just because one is here on a visa, said Fire Legal Director Will Creeley. The First Amendment bars the government from punishing protected speech, period. In our free country, you shouldn't have to show your papers to speak your mind. Now, the plaintiffs in the lawsuit, so the clients that Fire is representing and suing the government on behalf of these clients, is an interesting collection of people, here again from Fire. Plaintiffs in Fire's lawsuit represent the wide range of groups and individuals whose speech is threatened by the continued assault on non-citizens' protected speech. The Stanford Daily, the independent, student-run newspaper at Stanford University, where writers with student visas are declining assignments related to the conflict in the Middle East, worried that even reporting on the war will endanger their immigration status. They're also suing on behalf of Jane and John Doe, two legal non-citizens with no criminal record who engaged in pro-Palestinian speech and now fear deportation and visa revocation because of their expression. There's real fear on campus, and it reaches into the newsroom, said Greta Reich, editor-in-chief of the Stanford Daily. I've had reporters turn down assignments, request the removal of some of their articles, and even quit the paper because they fear deportation for being associated with speaking on political topics, even in a journalistic capacity. The Daily is losing the voices of a significant portion of our student population. I think the story here from the Stanford Daily kind of gets at the reason kind of these sorts of policies or cracking down on speech like this is so pernicious. It creates this chilling atmosphere where people are afraid to speak their minds, afraid to write the wrong thing or the government will come get them, that to me just seems totally un-American. And I don't believe that we need a safe space from criticism of Israel or even anti-Semitism, which is subjective and people disagree on what constitutes anti-Semitism. I don't think we need safe spaces for these things any more than we do from racism, homophobia, sexism, transphobia, and all the other things where conservatives rightly reject this safe space mentality. I don't know why, for some people on the right, free speech becomes a nuanced question that they make a lot of exceptions to the second that Israel gets involved. To me, that makes no sense. You either believe in these principles across the board or you don't. Having an exception for one specific issue does not make sense. Now, one point I want to acknowledge is that Fire's lawsuit does not argue, and I certainly don't contend, that the Trump administration cannot revoke the visas and deport people who engage in criminal activity or who get suspended from their university for bad behavior. So if you're one of these students who came here and engaged in crimes, if you in any way provided material support for Hamas, a designated terror group, that is a crime. You can be charged with that crime. You can have your visa revoked and you can be deported. Even if you get suspended from school for engaging in an encampment, a disruptive protest, you could have your visa reviewed and repealed, taken away for that behavior. That's all fine. I don't object to that, and I don't think Fire does either. What we're saying is that people who are legally in this country have the right to speak their mind and express themselves, same as an American, and that we do not need government speech police cracking down on their ideas and speech and arresting and deporting people because their ideas displease the state. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, and anyone on the Republican or conservative side would disagree with that basic message. More from FIRE here. FIRE aims to stop the government's use of the two provisions that stand counter to our ideals as a nation, provisions that in their expansive scope and unchecked authority are more at home in countries like China and Russia than in a free America. By defeating these provisions, no administration of any party will be able to weaponize them against individuals for expression disfavored by the government. And that's the key point here. Even if you support, in theory, the crackdown of anti-Israel radicals on college campuses, you shouldn't support it in principle, because the same principles and powers and authorities used here could and frankly will, if allowed to stand, be used against you and the ideas you agree with. Censorship is never, ever a one-way street. It always ends up going both ways. So be careful what you wish for, and be careful what you support if you're somebody who believes in free speech and free expression. That's why I'm rooting for FIRE. I hope they succeed in this lawsuit, and I will be following it with great interest. What do you guys think? Do you disagree with me on this one? I'm open to hearing you out. I'm all about free expression after all. Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button while you're at it, and make sure you're subscribed. Now, guys, one final story that I have to cover because I just find it so absurd and so hilarious. Chris Cuomo, the former CNN host and now a News Nation host, is embroiled in a bit of an embarrassing saga at the moment because he shared a fake video of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, got called out for it, and then kinda sorta apologized. So here's the tweet exchange that happened. Originally, Chris Cuomo tweeted a clip of a link to a video of AOC talking about the Sydney Sweeney jeans campaign and claiming that it was Nazi rhetoric. And then Chris Cuomo wrote, "Nothing about Hamas or people burning Jews' cars, but Sweeney jeans ad deserved time on the floor of Congress? What happened to this party? Fight for small business, not for culture wars." Now, the problem was that this clip of AOC, which I will show you in a moment, was obviously fake and AI generated, and even was labeled as much explicitly, yet he still fell for it. So AOC responded, "This is a deep fake, dude. Please use your critical thinking skills. At this point, you're just reposting Facebook memes and calling it journalism." Now I'm going to show you the clip of Chris Cuomo sort of apologizing, sort of admitting he was wrong on News Nation on his show. Take a listen to that.
You listening? I was wrong. I was tweeting today and saw a clip of AOC saying that Sydney Sweeney ad was racist. And so I replied to it and I said, why do you care about this and ignore what matters most? Why, in all the times that you've called on Israel to stop, why have you never told Hamas to stop, told Hamas to surrender? Why would you ignore the St. Louis attack on that Jewish guy who had his car bombed? AOC tweeted back and said, dude, that's a deep fake, that Sydney Sweeney ad. You suck, in so many words. And she was right. They got me. AI. It was really good, and it did seem like something she would say, but it wasn't her. So I thanked AOC for correcting me.
So, I mean, I sort of give him credit for admitting he made a mistake, but he makes some excuses. Like, it sounded like something she would say, or it was really good AI, that are actually laughable. Like, absurd if you watch the actual AI video clip that he shared that we're going to watch now.
Sydney Sweeney looks like an Aryan goddess, and the American Eagle Jeans campaign is blatant Nazi propaganda. I mean, fuck. Watching that sultry little temptress squeeze into a Canadian tuxedo, 3 sizes too small, with her bouncy little fun bags on the screen staring at you, piercing through the core of your soul, with those ocean blue eyes that could resurrect the Führer from his grave in Argentina, is something that should alarm every American citizen, because in America, beauty is not defined by whiteness. Oh no, it is defined by the number of victim groups of which you are a member. Skinny, attractive, blonde-haired, blue-eyed cisgender women descend from the slave daddy oppressors of this nation. And any man who cranks one out while thinking about a woman like this probably hates black people, probably hates gay people, and they certainly hate the diversity of our great nation. So I say, instead of simping for the Sydneys, we should be celebrating the Shaniquas. Instead of worshiping the hot, straight blonde, what about the obese alphabet, people with blue hair? They need love too. And to all the haters who say companies that go woke, go broke, I'd rather be poor than a fucking Nazi.
So that AI video was kind of funny. I mean, it's so over the top. It's so absurd that the idea that any journalist could see that. Also, you guys, if you're listening on audio podcasts, you won't see this, but if you're watching on YouTube, I'll zoom in on this. It is labeled at the top, parody 100% made with AI. So I just find it diabolical and embarrassing that any major cable news host and journalist could watch this and actually think AOC actually said that. Like, I think AOC is crazy. I think she says absolutely wild woke stuff, but not that. Like, that is way too over the top. It's obviously immediately fake. And just the absolute dearth of critical thinking skills in this country, of media literacy, even from primetime cable news hosts, is just galling, is just depressing. Like, it scares me because this AI video, to me and to I think most people under the age of 70, is immediately obvious that it's AI. But this technology is going to get much better and it's going to get really convincing. And then we're going to have a serious problem because we already have ancient journalists in the mainstream media like this unable to detect obvious fakes. What about when they're not so obvious? Like, it's on journalists. Once we have this brave new world of AI technology where videos that are fake are almost indistinguishable from reality, we're going to have to rely on journalists and insiders to verify stuff and to check stuff and help the public figure out what's real and what's fake. And yet some of those journalists can't even tell obvious AI slop. And look, I'm a fan of AI slop, okay? The Instagram videos with the cat and the funny music, all of it. I am pro AI. I think a lot of it's creative, a lot of it's funny, but I'm really worried. Like, the fake news that people believe on either side of the spectrum, all over Facebook, all over TikTok, we've debunked so many fake stories, and they believe that without actual like video evidence of things that aren't true in most cases. When that stuff gets really good, we're really going to be in trouble if people don't develop some critical thinking and media literacy skills. Because right now they're not in the room with us. Even Chris Cuomo, host of a primetime cable news show, decades and decades of experience as a journalist, falling for AI slop like a random boomer on Facebook. I am concerned. I'm really not sure we're going to be okay. Like, the misinformation, the low information, the civic and political literacy of the public is already so bad. And I think technology is about to make it a whole lot worse. So far be it from me to defend AOC, but just like basic fact checking and journalism, it should be extended to anyone. And this was so obviously parody and satire, but somehow people fell for it still. I can't believe it, but here we are. Things are getting bleak, y'all. They're getting bleak. But what do you guys think? What did you make of this? Could you tell it's an obvious fake? Let me know in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet and hit that like button while you're at it. All right, guys, that'll be it for this episode of the Barad vs. Everyone podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Remember to send in your voicemails for our Voicemail Friday episodes. And with that, guys, we'll talk again real soon.